in books and in papers and things for a while, but really didn't know much about the problem in Atlanta specifically until we sort of got involved with a few of the churches locally in the Atlanta area, North Avenue and Midtown and Peachtree Pres, and they had been focusing on sex trafficking within our city, and so we had a few students who had gone to those churches who were sort of finding out about the problems within our own city and wanted to do something, and so we put together a 3-day event on Emory's campus to educate our student body and also brainstorm ways in which we could get involved as a community.
Are your student groups among the two colleges and other colleges working together?
We're working on building partnerships. It's still a growing sort of process.
How do your fellow co-eds, Arun, how do your fellow co-eds feel about you taking on this cause?
I think initially it's a very sort of gruesome reality when you think about the issues of sex trafficking and within our own city, and I think just the fact that it's such a sort of extreme case is everybody's sort of surprised and shocked, and when they hear figures and stories, they're kind of taken back. I think the difficulty is moving beyond that and showing the sort of societal causes of the systemic issues of injustice in our societies and the over-sexualization of our society.
Molly, I see you nodding. How are your fellow students addressing this?
Georgia Tech is really a great atmosphere. I was surprised at how quickly people were willing to get involved. We've had people from housing get involved, people from the honors program, people from different campus ministries. And I think the great thing about this issue is that it's not a one-sided issue. Republicans, Democrats, Christians, non-Christians, any religion, any political stance, no one's going to disagree with you that this is wrong, that children should not be sold into slavery, and 12-year-old girls should not be pimped out by men on the streets to people flying in for the evening from Hartsfield. So I would say that people are definitely taking it seriously, and I think that the local government is also taking it seriously. Stephanie Davis has been working on it for quite some time. There have been articles running in the AJC, and not only here, but in the New York Times as well. So I'm hoping that the more people who are educated about it, the more outraged they'll get, because I feel like it would almost be impossible for someone to hear that a 12-year-old girl is being sold for sexual slavery and, just stay on their couch about it, So I feel like it's an issue that's going to move people to action, and I know that's been so true on Tech's campus. So I'm really encouraged by all the support that we've had and the reaction of people. So I see it going in a good way. And
this started with one sermon by Pastor Buddy at the Midtown Community Church, and you were at the same service?
I was not, but I have friends who, through our InterVarsity Fellowship, who go to that church and came back and were kind of outraged and have you heard about this? And I just tried to figure out how we could use that energy to get the rest of the campus to. This is obviously incredible stuff. A lot of people, when they find out about this, really want to do something about it, because nobody knows exactly what's happening to the scale that it's happening. Mm-hmm. And so how could we harness those students to reach more students?
Is the faculty involved in Emory as it is at Georgia Tech?
Yeah, the faculty did support a lot of, especially our 3-day event.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about your 3-day event.
We had Stephanie Davis spoke as well.
Right.
We had a benefit concert. We had a panelist from around the Atlanta area who've been working on the issue, and sort of to give students an idea of ways in which we could work concretely right here in our city, moving beyond activism. We had David Batstone, who wrote Not for Sale, come and speak. And during the day we had tables out and we just sort of confronted people with this issue. And I think it reached the whole campus basically in some way or another, and we made the front page of the campus newspaper.
When you talk to fellow students, faculty, and even other people that are not in school, when they hear about this, that their reaction is of disbelief?
Yeah, entirely.
And what is the answer to stop this?
Well, I think that they're, obviously, continuing to talk about it, on programs like this, and talking at schools, but I think that it's important for the community to kind of be aware of any suspicious behavior that might be going on. If you're seeing,
define that. What does that mean? Suspicious behavior. Right?
They found there was a house, for example, outside of the city here that was housing child prostitutes, and there were Johns coming to the house during the day, and you rarely saw kids, but then one day you saw two girls who were allowed to go to a Quick Trip or something like that, and the neighbors sort of put two and two together that there's got to be something weird going on, and they were actually busted, and there were quite a few girls, actually a huge group of girls who were found, and so that was one way, neighbors,
just paying attention to what might be happening in the neighborhood. That just gives me a knot in my stomach when I hear that story. That's just horrible. And these children are kept prisoners
exactly
for the men who come in and pay for that.
Yeah, and I think that the people who are pimping them out, really, they know how to, get the girls to think that, they'll hurt their families or whatever. I mean, so the girls, it's hard to get away from them because, they're introduced to drugs and they become addicted, and they look at them as okay, these are kind of like my new parents, and it's very complicated. There is an organization I wanted to say, the Center to End Adolescent Sexual Exploitation. It's called CEASE here in town, and they do have a program that takes in different girls and boys, I think, right. Who they've been able to get off the streets and rehabilitate them. I mean, it's a safe house, and it's confidential where it is, but they only have 8 beds or something like that. And there's so many kids, who are obviously suffering. So I think donating money to organizations like that, because this is going to affect them the rest of their lives and relationships they have, and a lot of these kids really don't actually make it past 21.
And why is that? Is it because they're killed? Is it suicide?
I think
what's happening to these children?
Well, drug addiction, which leads to depression, suicide is one thing, and I think that it's so traumatizing that I think if you're experiencing that as a child and an adolescent, where do you go from child prostitution?
Well, you've been violated. A lot of times these are runaways, so they don't necessarily have a safe home life, which is why they've run away, and they end up in the street, and they've been enticed, if you will, by someone who they feel like will protect them and who may protect them enough to coerce them into this activity, this exploitation, and then, as you said, they're on drugs and they can't get away. So it is a big problem. I appreciate all of you coming on and talking about this. You had mentioned the CEASE organization. Are there others that you're aware of that our viewers might be able to go to for help?
There is Angela's House and Wellspring and Tapestry. We're all 3 house girls who are taken out of the sex industry, but they are extremely short on funds and supplies. I know that Wellspring needs a whole bunch of supplies, clothing, canned foods, anything like that. There's also CEASE, which you can donate money to, but also you can volunteer with CEASE. They need volunteers of women or men who are willing to spend time with them and go to court with them and form a relationship with them, so you can actually volunteer through CEASE to do that.
That must be pretty traumatic for those children to have to go into court and testify against them.
Definitely, because they're still terrified of those men.
And a lot of times they've been threatened by those men, and their families have been threatened by those men, so it's quite a traumatic experience for them to go through that.
And apart from donations, there's always letter writing. You can write to Craigslist, because actually Craigslist is where a lot of men go to find girls to come into Atlanta and buy a date with, if you will. So write to the owners of Craigslist, write to your local legislature, write to Mayor Shirley Franklin. There's a lot of things you can do if you're a college student like us and don't necessarily have the means to donate a whole lot of money. You can do letter writing, volunteer work, donate old clothes to Wellspring. And there's also the Juvenile Justice Foundation, which is in Atlanta, which you can donate money or time to. You can also do clerical work there. There's a lot of stuff that you can volunteer your time for. So as a college student, that's the easiest thing for us to do, and it's extremely effective. So.
And also on an international level, there's International Justice Mission, IJM, that works all around the world. It's a group of lawyers that go and work with law enforcement in different areas and try to rescue children and even adults out of different forms of slavery. But I would say, in terms of the solution, I think part of it is we need more beds for these women who are rescued. We need better law enforcement, more law enforcement focusing on this issue. And we need to deal with the issue that's at hand. But I think the fact of the matter is we could, all these slaves could disappear overnight and 27 million more people would rise up to take their place just because we've created an industry that feeds on human beings. And I think that on a very basic level, we need to change the way we look at sex and the way we look at women in society. And I think society's set up to objectify women. I think a lot of our advertising, a lot of our movies, a lot of the magazines and things we see around is set up to look at women as objects as opposed to human beings. And this is the most base, extreme form of dehumanizing a woman, but it happens in so many levels. And we're all a part of that. I think we need to be aware of the ways in which we create those structural injustices that lead to little girls being raped on the streets of Atlanta and on the streets in the Philippines, and we need to be aware of our role in that as well.
Is this a passion that you feel like you're going to take into your adult career?
Yeah, I think we all, no matter what we do, have a role to play in this. The key is that everybody in any profession doing anything has to be a part of this struggle because it involves all of us. These could very easily be our sisters and brothers and mothers and daughters. And so no matter what we do, I think we each have to figure out how we can take up the fight, whether we're a filmmaker or just a college student.
Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate you sharing your time with us about this very important issue here in Atlanta. And again, my guest, Kathleen Kelly, a filmmaker here in Atlanta, and Molly is a student at Georgia Tech, Arunan, a student activist at Emory University. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. I'm Wanda Buckley. We'll see you next time.